Happy Thursday, everybody. It's Mike Novak from the Novak Real Estate Team, just north of Seattle, Washington. We do this Build Mastermind every Thursday at 10 o'clock. And Rachel, my wife, Jim Black out of Boston, and Ed Stroud out of Kansas City are our partners in this. And so you hear us kind of go on rotation each week, and we're always talking about something different. We got Jim himself just hopping on now. Good morning, Jim. Good to see you. Today we're going to talk about lead conversion, guys, and I want to go back to basics. Like there's a lot of ways that you can handle lead conversion, how we train people on how to do it. But I feel like this can be an overwhelming topic if we throw too much too fast at people. And I've done a lot of webinars on like how to be an efficient lead converter, how to organize your database, how to make the most out of your time. Like I've got a webinar called the 1 hour lead conversion 1 hour a day, right? You can go back and watch that if you want to like find efficiencies in how to lead convert. But today, I really want to focus on nailing our intro for leads. I want to focus on nailing our appointment set language patterns. And I want to give you guys what we call the critical question in your phone calls to know if you should set an appointment or if you should just continue to nurture this person. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That sounds good. Give me a thumbs up. We're good on that. Let's do it. All right. So first of all, Jim, since you're not on our team, bro, I want to hear your intro. Like if you're calling me, I'm a Google lead. I just Googled homes for sale in Boston, and you're calling me right away. You're on top of it. You had speed to lead. You called me in like 20 seconds. What's your intro sound like? Let's role play that out.
Okay. Ring.
Hello.
Hey, this is Jim Black with the Jim Black Group Real Brokerage. I was just giving you a quick call. I saw you were looking for a home in Worcester.
Yeah.
Okay. What has you looking for a home?
I just wanted to see what was out there.
Okay. Where are you looking around?
Just that general Boston downtown area.
Boston downtown. Okay. Awesome. What has you looking?
Just wanted to get a feel for the market, kind of see what prices we're doing.
Okay. And do you have like a timeline that you're looking to make a move?
Not really, just trying to get a feel for what's out there. So we can call it good there. Great job, Jim. Give Jim a round of applause. Jim connected reasonably well, I would say. But Jim, let's unpack Jim's intro. Jim, that's a mouthful. And
Mhm.
let's analyze this. What did he do well, and what do you think he could improve on? Because again, like the reason I want to focus on intro, guys, is because you've got 15 seconds to bring value to these people and to get them to stay on the phone with you or they hang up, right? It's just like they've got that split second decision. This person's either going to add value to my life, my day, or you're dead to me and I'm hanging up the phone. So how we cut through that noise is super important. Okay, Jim, break it down for us.
The first immediate difference that I see is Jim answered, well, as soon as a person said hello, Jim talked for a significant amount of time. And in our world, we talk about how that can feel very salesy, and most people would just hang up literally right then. So there's no like engagement or back and forth yet. Like this is a real person that's calling you from that first sentence he said would be my first impression.
Okay.
And then after that, it was really nonchalant from the lead, like, oh, I was just getting an idea. I was just looking. And the questions Jim had directly after each of those was not rapport building or personal in any way. It was kind of more transactional, like where do you look, like, what's your timeline? And when are you hoping to move, as opposed to, well, what has you thinking about moving? What's got you curious? Like those are more open-ended questions that would inspire this person to have an actual conversation.
So motivation is kind of what you're talking about, right? Right.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about, guys. Like, so I want to give you kind of a 4-part framework on how we train our agents on how to convert leads. The first part is what Jim just said, motivation, right? I need to understand why this person is looking for homes for sale. Most of your phone calls with people are going to sound like Jim's and mine just did. I'm just kind of looking. I'm just kind of curious. I don't have a timeline, right? That's totally cool. We have to get very good at handling that because nobody is actually looking to buy a house until they decide they're ready to buy a house. And you don't know when that's going to be, right? You have to be able to connect them more. So motivation is the first one that I want you to write down. After motivation, I want you to focus on connection. Connection is super important. What is the life story? What is the life event that is happening with this person that's causing them to want to make a move, or that's got them curious to look at properties? Maybe they're upsizing, maybe they're downsizing, maybe there's been a death, maybe there's divorce. But what I know to be true, guys, is that people buy and sell real estate when life is changing. As soon as we can understand that, as soon as we can connect with them over this, that's where it really, really elevates the phone call. Okay, so motivation, connection. Qualification is the third one. Is this person qualified to do what they're wanting to do? And we'll talk about that a little bit later on how to unpack that. The final one is the close. Just literally close them. I'm going to talk about closing language patterns towards the end of this call. But overall, I think Jim did a decent job. I'd give him a 6 out of 10. I think that there's things that he could do better. And I want to offer you a different language pattern. And if you've worked with Robbie T from Hatch Coaching, shout out to our boy Robbie T, who many of us know really closely. He has drilled this into our team for like 7 years, right? And what I found is that it's best just to use what's proven to work and not try to recreate the wheel. Every time I deviate from this intro, it ends up with a negative reaction. Like I don't get the outcome I want. So while I don't like robotic scripting and I don't want you to be reading off of a piece of paper, I do think that there's places within the framework of a call where you want to use some proven language patterns. That's why we're doing this webinar today. That's why we're talking about this, okay? And so the intro I want to give you is just this. Hi, Jen, it's Mike Novak from the Novak team here in Snohomish County. You connected with us on one of our real estate websites. I want to reach out to you and see if you're thinking about making a move now or in the near future. What am I not doing here, Jen?
I don't know. There's a lot that you're not doing.
I'm not asking you about the house, right?
Yeah, it's not about the property that you clicked on at all, like ever, because that makes it fully transactional and you bypass the whole opening for motivation completely if you do that.
Right. So why is this effective? I mean, this is you've trained this for years as well. Why does this work?
Well, the first thing is you give them space to not feel put on the spot, right? Because if you call immediately and you're like, oh, you were looking at 123 Main Street, are you interested in that home? The immediate sales resistance is going to say, no, I don't want to talk to you, get off the phone, that kind of thing. Whereas if you're saying, are you thinking about a move now or in the future, it's way less pressure for them to actually start discussing why they might actually be curious.
Exactly. And some of the mistakes that I see is what Jen kind of identified with Jim a little bit is they kind of tend to transactionalize their introduction on the phone call. Or the worst intro that I can give you that I've ever heard from agents, and I hear this all the time when I'm listening to their phone calls is, hey, Jen, it's Mike from the Novak real estate team. I saw you were looking at 123 Main Street. I want to reach out to you and see if you have any questions. That shit don't work, guys. It's not gonna get the job done, okay? So that's not going to cut it. When we use this intro, we bypass the house completely, right? Because she's going to say, well, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it, but I'm just looking. Okay, what's got you wanting to look at properties? Why are you curious on what market prices are doing right now? What is that life event that's happening, right? So it allows us to go through that framework of motivation right to connection. If we don't understand motivation, we cannot connect with this person and we cannot help this person, okay? That's the single most important thing that we can get out of the call. And this introduction is going to put that on a silver platter for you because you're not transactionalizing and talk about the house. When you ask people, do you have questions about the home? What are they going to say, Jen?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Now where do we go?
Bye.
this call was worthless for you and for me. I brought you no value, right? And I got nothing out of it either. So again, I'm going to say this intro to you again. This recording will be posted in our Facebook group, so you can go back and look at it. But I promise you, if you learn this intro, if you memorize it, if you just make it muscle memory, it will transform how your calls go. Okay. And it's going to shift them away from the house to the person and the motivation. Hey, Jen, it's Mike Novak from the Novak real estate team. You connected with us on one of our real estate websites, and I wanted to reach out to you and see if you're thinking about making a move now or in the near future. Elizabeth, you've been coaching people for years. Walk us through the mistakes that you've seen agents make with their intro. What do you got for us?
Anything that they can look up online, they don't need you for.
Yeah.
So we're not talking price, square footage, floor plan, pictures. So to me, the mistake is doing all of that and not asking about the motivation. Like, why are we talking today? What made you make that inquiry?
Yeah. What's got this curiosity going on, right? Single most important thing that we can uncover. Absolutely. I love that. Jim, how does that land? Like, well, I'm not trying to bash you on your intro. You did pretty good. I know you don't talk to leads anymore, but does that all make sense?
Absolutely. No, I was just on a call with Ben Kinney and he talked about going and digging into the database, calling 100 people in our own database, which I'm going to do. So this was actually good. I actually messaged Kay and was like, because she's digging into our old leads. And I said, why don't you use exactly what Mike just said?
Just try it, see how it goes, and let me know what the feedback is, okay? But I promise you it's going to cut past the transactional nature that most agents experience on phone calls, and it's going to allow you to connect with them at a very deep level, okay? The other big, huge mistake I see agents make is they want to have all the information before they talk to the person. Why is this problematic? Jen, this used to be you when you first started in real estate. How'd you get past this?
So you're calling people, right? You like maybe they just did an action, so you're calling them because of speed to lead, or you're making a call list like you're gonna do today, Jim, and you're like, okay, I gotta know what they're looking at, so I know what to tell them if they ask me a question. Doesn't matter. When you do that, you hang on to the house too much. Like, who cares about the house? Like, you have to really get over that hurdle and be more like, okay, they took some sort of action. That's why you're calling them. That's what you're talking about. You're not talking about the house at all. And so press call and then go. Now, if this person's been in the database for a while, I'll press call and then I'm just glancing to see, have we ever talked to them before? Have they been here for 4 years in our database? Did they just come in like a month ago? Because that context kind of lets me know if they maybe have seen our emails for years and years, and then there's a little more familiarity. That's something that I want to know before they answer the phone. But as far as like what house they actually looked at, what their typed out inquiry was, like, who cares? Like, that gets in the way of being able to actually get the motivation. You get really transactional when you do that. And then you have analysis or paralysis by analysis. Like, you're not going to be effective on your prospecting power hour or whatever times that you've assigned yourself to connect with people if you're trying to analyze every single thing this lead has done before you actually give them a call.
So I'll share with you guys a couple of things here. I was at the Tom Ferry event in Seattle along with our team a few weeks ago, and I ran into one of my friends who was an agent down in Tacoma, which is southwest by a couple hours. He's one of the top Zillow agents down there. We were talking about lead conversion. Him and I kind of argued a little bit because he's like, Mike, I don't want to pick up the phone until I know everything about the house in case they ask about it. And I told him, I was like, anything about the house doesn't even matter. And in fact, the benchmark of a great call is where they completely forget about the house. Right? When we just set a consultation to meet up and chat and get to know each other, right? That's the definition of a win, in my opinion. And so we went back and forth about this, and it kind of challenged us thinking you have to see, kind of the bigger scale of it. The other thing I want to tell you guys, Jesse, who owns Call Action, like one of the best tech tools in the real estate space for texting and calling, he looks at more data than anyone I know on calling. Calling across the nation right now has an 8% pickup rate. So if I'm spending the time before I call people to microanalyze what they were doing and what they were looking at, I am wasting the vast majority of my prospecting time. It's analysis by paralysis, just like Jim was saying. Just hit the dial button and talk to them like they're a person. What they looked at and even their name doesn't matter. It just matters that you're able to connect with them. If you go back to the motivation, go back to the connection, none of the home details and even their name don't really matter that much, okay? Anything else in this one before we move on to the seller intro, which has got this crazy drastic spin from buyer intro?
So this kind of ties into it. It's totally different, but I have a high C personality and exactly what Jim said, like I wanted everything to be perfect. And I had that go on with expired listings where I would dig for 15 minutes and I would call and it would be wrong number.
Yeah.
It would relist it or something. And I wasted so much time and eventually I got fed up and just stopped.
Yep.
So that's one of the repercussions of making an excuse. Well, I'm a high C, I need the info. For me as a high C personality, less info is better.
Yep. And it's uncomfortable at first to do this, but if you commit to doing this, just to taking the action and you learn the framework of a successful call with the motivation and the connection, the home details just don't matter. But it takes a while to rip that Band-Aid off where you're comfortable being uncomfortable. And then eventually you don't even think about it. It's just another person you're talking to, right? So let me give you guys this crazy twist of this intro for a seller. Hi, this is Mike Novak from the Novak team here in Snohomish County. And you connect with us on our real estate website to get the value of your home. I want to reach out to you and see if you're thinking about selling your home and making a move now or in the near future. Oh my God, like, I don't know how to talk to sellers, guys. Well, it's the same shit, right? How much did I change? I changed that you're on our website so that you were trying to get the value of your home. That's it, right? Are you thinking about selling or making a move in the future? You know how to talk to sellers. It's the same way you talk to buyers, okay? That's the other reason this intro works so well. It is completely universal. Jim, what was your intro, just out of pure curiosity's sake, for sellers before? What did it look like?
Did you say Jim or Jen? I can't do it with the two of us. Like I just can't.
Jim.
Jim.
I think since we were picking on you, I thought we'd just keep going with it.
So honestly, it was going to be very similar to what I'd done before. Just like I see you were looking for, a value on your home. I mean, a lot of times they're looking getting their home value, and it'll pull it up with Fellow and just say, is that value, how do you feel about the value that it gave you?
Mm-hmm. Got it.
That's transactional, Jim. That's too transactional.
There's a reason why I'm not out there doing it. I'll be honest, I personally have always been too transactional. I've had success with being transactional. I would say not being transactional will create a lot more success for somebody.
Well, with folks that have
not being a high C myself, like I can see that it would be difficult to not be transactional as a high C, because for you, all of this data is important, and you don't need to ask me about any personal stuff, because like to Jim, if you're a high C, what difference does it make? Like, I don't care about any of that stuff. It's the numbers that matter.
I was going to say, you probably speak very well with people that are very similar to you, Jim. Like, you click immediately, and your calls with those people are probably going to be very, very successful because of that's the style that they communicate. But most folks aren't high Cs. So generally, like, if you just say, how do you feel about that value? They'll be like, oh, well, it's fine. And I got what I needed. Thanks. Okay, bye. Like it has to be more like, well, what got you curious? Like, tell me more.
Right. And what you're talking about is kind of personality matching, right? Like, how do we match the personality with the person we're talking about? And Jim being a high C, what are high Cs, like 15% of the population? It's not a huge amount, but they're definitely out there. And they definitely expose themselves extremely quick on phone calls because they ask you things like, what's the price per square foot on that house, right? High Ds is the other one where the connection is going to be a little bit more brief. You know what I mean? High Ds, what is it, Jim? 3%?
7, I think.
Is it 7? So it's
No.
low. Like your odds of getting a high D on the phone are fairly low. But if you get that high D on the phone, how do you adjust and adapt this, Jen or Chuck, to actually connect with that person? Because we know that the high D, what do they like? They like competency, right? And they like efficiency.
You got to be blunt. Just be blunt and helpful. Be like, hey, Mike, it looks like you were taking a look at your home value online. Are you thinking about selling sometime soon?
Just like right at it, right?
That's perfect.
Yeah, like
Speak in bullet
that's
points.
it. Yeah, exactly.
What'd you say, Yvonne?
Speak in bullet points.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't send them long paragraph emails either. Speak. Everything is in bullet points with a D.
Yeah. No,
and don't repeat.
Yeah.
At all.
If you repeat back what a high D says, they're going to get frustrated. And if you ask them the same question twice because you weren't listening, they're going to think you're an idiot and they're just going to hang up the phone because you're wasting their time. High Ds value their time more than anything else. And these calls sometimes are like 4 or 5 minutes total, which is really short, but you can connect really well with a high D in 4 or 5 minutes if you do it right. So, all right. We talked about the intros. I've given you kind of like the language pattern that our team uses and that I coach people to use, and it's worked really well for us. So I want to encourage you guys to use that in your phone calls. I want to next talk about the critical question, and this is right out of Robbie's playbook. This was a game changer when he showed us this back in 2019. what we would experience, guys, is these phone calls would just kind of be going nowhere. Like, I don't know where this is going. You know, I don't know if I should keep talking to this person. I don't know if I should hang up on them. I don't know if they're gonna hang up on me. Like, what are we doing here, right? And so Robbie came up with this question. I want to share back this question that he gave us, this tool to use. Okay. And when you use this question, is kind of everything. I'm curious, if the ideal home Jen came on the market in the next 30 days, would you want to go look at that home, or would you pass up on that opportunity? This puts a fork in the road, okay? Because leads cannot contemplate the complexity of a question like, when do you want to make a move? Well, shit, I don't know when I want to make a move. I got a house I need to sell. I got kids that are in school. I got dogs barking behind me right now as we're having this phone conversation. I can't contemplate that. Like, that is a huge question. So when people can't contemplate a question or the complexity of a question, what do? They give you a brush off answer, like 6 months, 12 months, next spring, after the election, after the new year. All these bullshit brush offs come because of that. Okay. So if you can ask them just an easier question, a more simple question, if we can dumb it down into just a simple to process question. If the ideal home came on the market, would you want to go look at that home, or would you pass up on that opportunity? Well, shoot, I'd want to go look at it. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and move towards qualifying and closing this person at this point. If they say, no, I wouldn't, then I need to dig a lot deeper. What's really going on here? Maybe they have a retirement that's happening at a certain date. Maybe they're moving from another state and there's a timeline attached to that. I need to go do a lot more fact finding to understand why they wouldn't want to go take a look at the home. The vast majority of people you talk to online, they're going to say yes to this question. Jen, when do we ask this question to make sure it lands right? Because if you ask this too soon, it's not going to go that well.
You really have to know their motivation first, to make sure that they're truly do want to move. And then when you've got to have the connection and the rapport, so they're already trusting that you're a guide and that you have value to share with them. Sometimes I'll ask this after I know a little bit about their qualifications, but I can also ask it just before that as well. This is really in the fork in the road, like how soon can we step in to help them? If you ask it too early and they don't trust that you have any real value to share, it's going to fall completely flat and they'll say no to you just because you haven't earned their honest answer yet. But it's also going to need to be late enough in the conversation so that it's like the linchpin to open up if they are actually serious, right? Like, this is the serious meter question to find out if they're a nurture or if you're going to sit down with them in the next 7 days.
Yes, you totally nailed it. Jim, have you guys tried this question? I know you guys work with Robbie a lot as well.
Yeah, we use the exact question.
Yep.
Because every time somebody's like, yeah, we're looking to move in 6 months or 12 months, and they ask that question, so well, we want to take a look at it, which means they actually want to buy a house now.
Right. They just don't know how to process that, right? So we got to remember, guys, and we talked about this in our role plays on our team this morning in the morning session. A lot of lead conversion is really helping people self-discover what they really want and getting them out of their own way. Because when they get talked to on the phone, they maybe haven't thought about their timeline or they're not very clear on it. They just know that deep down they have this goal to buy or sell a house, but they don't know the path to get from that desire to that outcome. And that's where we really bring the value. Okay. And a lot of people, they're going to feel like dug in on this kind of stuff, and you're going to have to challenge their thinking, get them out of their own way. I was telling our team the other day, unless you've challenged people's thinking 2 or 3 times in a phone call, you haven't brought enough value on that call to ask for an appointment. Okay. Just saying yes to shit that you don't agree with is not bringing anybody value. I want to be very clear about that. Elizabeth, when you're coaching people on lead conversion, is this a question you've ever deployed? Do you have an alternative question that you could maybe share with us that's similar?
Yeah. Hold on a second. There you go. I lost my screen for a second. One of the things that I think about with this conversation is if you don't learn what people really want, you may give them something they don't want. Right. So that idea of being able to just go in and build that rapport. I think that sometimes if we put our relationship first and the sales second, you build the relationship first, the sale will happen. I think we get so caught up sometimes in our head, whether we've been scripted or whether we feel like we need to know all the answers, whatever our diagnosis as a salesperson is, put the salesperson aside for just a second, because you probably don't talk to your friends and family that way. So I think that if we learn how to get into conversation with people, build that rapport so that you can learn what they want by asking those questions, and then we can help them get there. I think that I've been taught that a human being's first response is a natural condition, right? We are all consumers. Most of us tend to go into a store and somebody will say, "Can I help you with something? What are you looking for?" And we typically say, "No, I'm good," unless you know what you want and you have a short time period, right? But that natural first response is usually what we say. So we're consumers, just like the consumers that we're talking about. So think about that for just a second. Flip it on the other side. Go, if somebody asked you those questions, how would you handle it? How would you feel? And then most of those pattern behaviors stop because we realize that we don't like to be talked to the way that salespeople talk to us.
Great point. So a couple follow-up questions for you on what you just said. When you use that store analogy and people ask us if we need help and we say no, why do we say no?
Naturally, first of all, we don't think we need any help. We think we can find it by ourselves.
Right. I don't need your help. I got this, right?
I'll find it for 4 hours in Best Buy into the wrong section, and then I'm going to ask you because I can't find it, right?
Right. My dad would always tell me at the grocery store, I'm not asking where something's that I can find it myself. And he'd walk around for half an hour in circles trying to find whatever he's looking for. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other question for you is, when you reframe it in the way that you just described, if we're just focusing on talking to people, and if we're focusing on just really coming from curiosity and less from a sales position, doesn't that take the pressure of these phone calls down a notch for us as agents? Like we don't have to learn some crazy script. We just got to talk to somebody like they're my grandma, right? I want to see how grandma's doing. What's going on with grandma, right? Grandma's thinking about making a move. Why does grandma want to make a move? What's going on in grandma's life, right? I'm not talking to her about like, forcing her into an appointment or why she's got to buy a house right now. Like I'm just coming from curiosity, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
But Ed, in coming from curiosity, like I actually recommend that people find a cozy spot and sit down and like because again, we get in our heads when we think we have to ask the right question out of the gate. If you listen, the question will come to you. But you got to treat them like a human first, right? And so to your point, Ed, if I wanted to call my abuela and ask her what she wanted to do, I'm not going to come in and try to, so what has you talking to me today? It's like, no, hold on a second. Let me just bring this down a notch and say, so just out of curiosity, what has you considering making a move?
Yeah, there you go.
Be interested in their life, because if you're not interested, you will be transactional. And then we have a whole other problem going on in the background. But because if you're being genuinely human, you're genuinely interested, and then you genuinely come from curiosity. I think we forget that in order to ask great questions, you've got to listen first.
And Chuck, I want you to jump on and talk for just a second, because I feel like this is a huge gift of yours and something that you've really helped like instill into our team's culture as well. Like you are the most naturally curious person I've ever met in my life. If I go on vacation with Chuck, when we were in Spain together back in September, he would meet new friends every single place we went. And he didn't go up there trying to sell them anything. He just wanted to know, who are these people? Why are you here? What are you doing? What's going on with you? And that curiosity is what makes great salespeople. Chuck, talk about that.
Well, when you guys were and Elizabeth was just talking, I was thinking about how Joe Rogan, love him or hate him, he's listening to, so he'll throw out a question and he's listening to whoever's answering. He's they're talking about some stuff, and in his head, I can see like 50 questions going off. Like, oh, he said this, he said this, he said this, he said this, he said this. Like, I want to know about that. And the reason he wants to know about that is because he actually wants to know about that. So for me, I really am genuinely curious about like, okay, so our role play yesterday, Jen was a seller, and her son is going into driver's ed in the next 18 months. And so when I'm watching the role play. And so for me, when she said that, a whole bunch of things went off, but like, I want to know, like, how are you, first thing, like, how are you doing with that, Mom? Like your kid is going into driver's ed. Like I try to, I guess, jump into their life, into their brain with what I would be thinking when my kids are going into driver's ed. I'm terrified. Like I know my kid and he's a terrible driver. He can't even like ride his bike anywhere. So like I think that being able to just and Jim said it, have a conversation and like the appointment will come. You know, like we do have to ask questions, but like my phone call will be way longer than somebody else's phone call because I've asked them a whole bunch of questions about, you know, really nothing, but it's important to them.
You got to
So,
tell the bingo story real quick, Chuck. Come on.
okay, bingo story. So in the CRM, like I have a lead. Never talked to her. Her name is Jen. And so I called Jen and I said, hey, Jen, it's Chuck from the Novak real estate team. And I saw a few days ago you were online taking a peek at some houses on our website. And she's like, super nice. She said, hey, well, I'm actually not really thinking about buying a house. She's like, but I do work at an assisted living place. And like some of our guests, you know, they need to sell their houses. And so we have this bingo night coming up on Halloween, before Halloween. And like, if you want to call a couple of bingo games, it's super fun and you'd encourage some people. And so I went and called bingo.
With a total stranger, guy.
Yeah. And like, you know, but being able to add value into somebody's life, and Mike started with, you know, they don't even know what they need. Like we are the professionals, we know what they need. Sometimes they actually just need a slowdown. Sometimes they just need a hand to hold through this process that your kid is getting ready to start driving, and like, what does it look like to sell your house? Like, does this actually make sense for you? Like, is that the only motivation? You have to push back on them and say, you know, like, well, maybe this isn't the right time to move. Maybe a better time is sometimes, and especially if you give pushback that is kind of anti the sale, they will always call you back. Always.
That's a huge thing for building trust, is when you're just objectively helpful. I've actually like talked people out of writing an offer, let's say, because I'm like I have these clients right now that want to go look at a house an hour and a half away from his work. And I've asked him 4 times. I'm like, are you sure, Garrett? Like, this is a really long drive. And he keeps saying, yes, you want to go, but I'm going to drive that home because our job is to protect everybody we talk about in the realm of real estate. And it starts with this first call to make sure that we can help them. And sometimes that help, to your point, Chuck, is to slow them down. But you're not going to know that unless you ask them questions, unless you get curious about their life and you find out what is the best fit for them. Sometimes they'll be like, no, I need to sell my house. I need to do this. I'm like, well, I have other clients who we could list their house today. We had some delays, whatever, they got cleared up. We can list today, but we're listing in January now because it makes more sense for them. They're not buying at the same time. They're going to have a much more lucrative outcome if we wait. So we're waiting. And I could say, oh, I really want to put them on my numbers on the pending board, you know, in 2024. But at the end of the day, that's not what's best for them. So I wouldn't know that unless I ask the questions. Okay, what does it cost to hold? What's the negative if we wait? Okay, you know what? We're going to do this because that's the smart thing to do. It takes those questions. You have, like what Mike said, I would advise my grandmother to do the same thing. Why wouldn't I do this for these clients?
Yeah, and curiosity comes across as caring. I want to be I want to really be sure we understand that. Okay. Like, I talked about motivation, connection, and we're really honing in on connection right now, right? Connection is a byproduct of curiosity converting into caring, converting into connection. It's like a linear progression. Okay.
Mike, there's a hack that I learned years and years ago, which I think applies really well now because so many people the younger generation of real estate agents are using their phones and technology a lot more, but bring out an old school notepad when you're making calls. And if you don't have a lot of information about the client written down, you're talking too much and they're not, because you don't have any of their answers written down to the questions you're asking. So yes, if you're asking questions and you write their answers down, you know where the path is going. So then you can actually use it and say, okay, I know where this person is going. I know what they need. I know what their desires are. But if there's nothing on that paper, it means that you just talk too much.
Yeah, there's Jen's old school notepad.
You were just teasing me about this like the other day that I write things down. You know what, Mike? There you
and
go.
your handwriting is so nice.
Validation.
Well, but also like in part of the thing when you're asking questions, like I always try to I'm an old guy. And so I'll say to somebody, they'll say, well, what do you think about this house? And I'll say, well, if you were my kids, or if you were my sister, if it's a gal who's closer to my age, or if you were my, uncle, or if you were my grandma, like here's what I would say. That's not saying that this is for you, but that for some reason that really builds trust, because I'm truly thinking about, like, if you were my kids, would I want you to make this purchase? Is knowing what I know about you, is this really a good move? Is this really the right time to move? But you have to put yourself into their life, right? And I don't know necessarily I'm not an analytical, so I don't know the back end reasons why that works, but it really allows me to build trust pretty quickly, is because I am curious.
I've had numerous clients ask me, Chuck, that same question, like, but coming from them, not from me. And they'd say, what would you tell your mom if she was going to buy this house? So I think that there's something to it there. And I think it relates to them. And it definitely stems from a foundation of trust. Like, that question is really a trust question,
Yeah.
All right. So we've asked that critical question. Jen, if the ideal home came on the market in the next 30 days, would you want to go look at that home, or we pass up on that opportunity? She says, yes, hell yeah, Mike, I want to go look at that house. Okay, let's go ahead and work on our close. And again, I want to give you a proven language pattern. That's what this is all about today. Not just theory, not just a concept, but a proven language pattern. Here's the close I've used for 8 years to set hundreds and hundreds of appointments. All right, Jen, the next step would be to meet with me for 20 to 30 minutes in my office so I can walk you through the home buying process, get you up to speed in the market, and identify exactly what we're looking for in your next home. I've got an availability today at 6 or tomorrow at 4. Which one of those is best for you? There is a lot to this close. There's a lot of psychology behind this, okay? The problem that I see so many agents make when they go to close somebody is, first of all, they don't even try to close. They don't ask for the appointment. If you're not asking for an appointment, someone tells you they're going to go look at the home, you're completely missing the mark. You might even be in the wrong business, okay? You have to ask for the appointment. You need to ask for it multiple times. You got to be aggressive when it comes to that. You need to be confident in your delivery. If you ask passively, like, Chuck, well, would it bring you any value to meet for about 20 or 30 minutes so we could talk about this? Like, how does that come across, Chuck?
Unmike-like.
Articulate why, though. Like, why is that not work? Why is that ineffective?
Because you're wishy-washy, and you personally aren't wishy-washy.
You're passive, right?
Yeah.
There's no authority there. That degrades the trust that you're the authority and can guide them.
Right. Don't forget, I said the next step. I'm telling you what our proven process is to help you buy a home or sell a home. Okay. Most buyers, guys, I want to make sure you know this. They think the process to buy a home is to look at Zillow and then go start touring houses. Is that the best way to buy a house?
No.
Hell no. But that's what they think, right? And so the pressure is on us. It is on us to articulate in detail why that's not the process, okay? Notice in this close, there's a few other things I want to point out for you. I did not call it a consultation. What does a consultation sound like?
Doctor.
I didn't call it a strategy session. What does a strategy session sound like? Sounds like I'm selling a fucking gym membership, guys. Right?
Like hokey BS, yeah.
Right. It sounds super cheesy. A strategy session. That doesn't bring me any value. All I'm doing, I'm not calling it anything. I'm explaining what we're going to do and what you're going to get out of it. When I can say this with conviction and I communicate in a way that is confident, they will want the appointment more than I want it. All of a sudden, my set to met rate goes through the roof. Okay? Because these people know that they already got so much value out of this call that when we meet in person, they're going to walk away completely knowing what it's going to take to buy a house. This is a game changer. I'm going to say the close one more time for you guys, just to make sure you've got it. Jen, the next step in this process would be to meet at my office for 20 to 30 minutes so I can walk you through the home buying process, get you up to speed in the market, and identify exactly what we're looking for in your next home. House today at 4 or tomorrow at 6. I'm articulating the 3 things we're going to do. Try this. It works. It's worked hundreds of times. It's worked in every market I've coached people on. This is proven shit, guys. Just do it. The other reason it works at the end is because I give them what we call the A or the B close. House today at 4, tomorrow at 6. It's not like, well, how does that sound? Well, I don't know how it sounds because you didn't sell me on it, right? You didn't explain it to me well enough. I'm giving them option A, I'm giving them option B. Which one of those is best for you? Jen, Chuck, Elizabeth, what do you guys got on this? Break it down.
I think also the A or B close of the times lets them know that your time is also valuable. If you go in the process of saying, oh, well, what time of day are you available on Tuesday? I've got some time. You've given them the power of the authority of the time. And at the end of the day, you're the professional. Your time is valuable. Your time is limited. And it's almost like giving them a little bit of FOMO if they don't pick A or B. And then, of course, you're not going to say, oh, well, that's all I have. You know, if they clearly just aren't available either of those times, you'll figure it out. But that starts the psychological piece of saying, okay, like there's so much value here. I need to fit in within this time. And that's part of what makes them want the appointment more than you do.
Yep.
Yeah, when you said meet with me in my office, that immediately made me think, because that's how my brain works, of Joe Rogan, who wouldn't meet with Kamala Harris because she didn't want to play at his place and his timeline. Like, you don't want to meet with the presidential candidate because she won't come to Austin? Nope, not how we do things. Like that says, like, I know what I'm worth, and I'll bring you some value. Like there's no like, oh, we're gonna play a different game. Nope, we're in charge.
I also think part of that element is that if you've gotten to this stage of this conversation, you're in that rapport lane and they're asking us for help, right? Maybe not directly, but they're asking us for help. And so our level as a professional is to be able to say, hey, come to my office, come and meet, let's talk, right? And you're setting the stage. And then at the end of the day, let's not forget that part of the reason why they're coming to us for our help is because they do want us to take that next step. And so the part I enjoyed about that, Mike, is when you say the next step in this process is, because how oftentimes either people don't understand the process, different information, maybe they bought 30 years ago and it's a different thing now, right? So you're telling them there's going to be a process and here's the next step. And then when we're done with this, I'm sure that you walk them out of the office and you tell them the next step is. And still, just the other day, we got some real gut information on the number one reason why a buyer still wants to go talk to a buyer's agent is because they think that we're going to find the property for them. Still the number one reason. It's been the number one reason for years. So if that's really the case, they're expecting us to go to work for them. Are we showing them that? And are we telling them what the next step in the process is going to be so that you don't think about how opposite that would be. I'm not going to tell you the next step. Where do you take that?
Well, I just don't know what to do with it as a buyer, right? And when I don't know what to do, I can't take action, right? Action comes from clarity, guys. We must provide clarity. If we want them to take the action, if we want to help them take the action they want to take, they don't even realize it yet, we have to give them clarity. That is the gift we must give them. Okay. Awesome thoughts. Thank you, all three of you guys, for chiming in on that. That was good stuff. Jim, are you still on here, buddy? I think
I'm still here.
Oh, you're on. Have you used this close before, or what has your close been on your team? I mean, you guys do a lot of volume as well. Like, what's worked for you, or is this pretty close to it?
It's pretty similar. I mean, we tell people that's a lot of what I tell people on my team, to make sure that we're having that we're confident. Because if we don't sound confident as this is what we're doing next, because they've never gone through this process, there's no way for them to feel confident that you're going to help them in this process. So you have to go with that confidence. I always use the alternative close. That's what I push to do. Just here's our two options. And if they say no to those options, you can always come up with another one. But if you just say, oh, do you want to meet this week? You're going to be on the phone for another 20 minutes trying to figure out when you're meeting.
My entire real estate career, guys, I've never met with clients in the morning, ever. And the reason I don't meet with clients in the morning is because that's my time to set more new appointments, right? Or to be doing things in my business. So I've always reserved the afternoons, like 3:30, 4:30, 5:30 for client-based appointments. I don't tell them I don't meet with clients in the morning. I just respect those calendar blocks to make me the most efficient agent possible. And I give them 2 different time slots to choose from. I use Calendly to hold myself accountable to it. So I can't cheat my own calendar, okay? All right, we are out of time, but I think we packed a lot of action, a lot of value into this. I really love the level of collaboration and contribution from everyone today. Super awesome. Yvonne, you were rad. Thanks so much for chiming in. Elizabeth, Chuck, Jim, amazing stuff, guys. Okay, I'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Bye,
Ray.
everyone.
Bye.
Go set some appointments.